Alright guys, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to show you how you can deploy a React and Node application to a DigitalOcean server using the GitHub Actions CI/CD. So basically this is going to be, guys, whenever you are making some changes to your project and you just want to push the code to GitHub, from GitHub automatically is going to deploy it onto your server and is going to display it online for everyone to see. So you don't have to be copying manually any files or anything like that. So it's going to be like the full process in here. Hopefully you guys will enjoy. I'm just going to do it with React and Node together because I think it's a bit more complex, but you can apply the same steps in here if you just want to use, for example, a React or just a Node application. All right, so let's get started with this. So I'm going to start with the project, with the setup in here. I'm not going to go like very slow because I'm sure that if you guys want to see this is because you already feel comfortable with React and Node. I will explain as I go. So make sure that you have Node.js installed on your computer so we can have all of these started. I'm going to create inside of this folder, a completely empty folder right now. I'm going to create an app.js file. And what I'm going to do in here in my Node.js server that I have, I'm just going to create like an API that I can make some query from the front end and send that value to the front end. It's going to be something very simple. We just want to test the CI/CD. Okay, now that I have this file, app.js, could be any name, I'm going to do npm init-y. So this is going to create my package.json, which will allow me to make any installations of the dependencies that I want. So I want to install npm i express. I want to install express so I can have like a server in here set up. Okay, so now that we got this, I'm just going to import in here on the top express and initialize the express. Now that we got this, the next thing that I want to do is I'm just going to create a simple route. Like, for example, whenever I go to /names on my browser or whatever, I just want to send some data, whoever is querying this. So I'm doing app.get. Whenever I go to /names or anyone makes a query in there with a get method, I'm just going to send, for example, my name. I'm putting here some pio. I'm going to put Telmo. All right. So I created this API in here, this call, this route. And the next thing that I'm missing in here is I'm going to do a app.listen. I'm going to listen these on the port 5000. You guys can choose whatever port you want. And I'm just going to put in here a callback function that is going to say server is running. So server is running on port and it's 5000. Okay, that's it. Perfect. Okay, we got our backend ready. Let's go and install now our frontend. Let's create our frontend. In here on the terminal, I'm going to do npx create -react-app. You need to have Node.js installed as well, the same thing. I'm going to call this folder now frontend. Could be anything. I'm just going to call it frontend. So it's going to create in here on my folders. By the way, meanwhile this is installing, I'm just going to increase the size of this, maybe so you guys can see a bit better, but it should be all right. Okay, this is installing. It's going to take like maybe 2-3 minutes. I'm going to make a pause and then we will come back after. All right, so now that our React app is installed, we can actually get started with this, make some queries to the backend, send the values to the front end and display it on the browser. By the way, I'm going to use Git a lot because we need Git in order to push our code into GitHub, and then from there we're going to push it onto our server. So make sure that you have Git installed. Since I am on Windows, I'm going to be using the git bash, the command line. So I'm just going to go in here. I'm going to do git bash. If you are on like Mac OS or Linux, you can just use the standard terminal. But if you are on Windows, I advise you to use this git bash, which comes automatically whenever you install Git. This is because the way that we're going to need to install some SSH keys in order to log into our server is only going to work well with this one. You can use other programs like Putty for Windows, but I had some troubles like before using it, so I just prefer to use this one. So that's what I'm going to use. Okay, so what we need, by the way, I'm just going to delete this. I don't need it right now. I'm going to go inside of my front end. So I'm going to do cd front end. And what I'm gonna do, as you guys can see in here on my terminal, whenever I go inside of my front-end React app, comes automatically with Git installed. I don't want Git inside of this front-end. I want my Git repository to be installed on the global repositories here outside of everything. So what I'm gonna do in here is git, maybe not git, rm-rf.git. I think that's the command if I'm not wrong, rm-rf.git. If you are going to use these guys with a different terminal, like PowerShell or Windows terminal, probably might not work. So that's why I have this integrated in here, my Git bash. That's why I know it works. If not, you know, just come in here, go inside of that folder, wherever you are, and just run this command. Okay, so this command in here now deleted my Git repository in there. So I'm going to do cd ... So now I'm on my global folder in here. What I'm going to do is git init. Okay, so already have everything initialized, guys. You should have this already as well. Now that we got git initialized, the next thing that we need to do in here is just go onto our front end. I'm going to go in here and I'm going to go into my source, into my app.js. Let me go in here, cd front end. And what I want to do in there, in my front end, is I want to install npm I Axios. I'm going to install Axios because I just want to make a call to the backend and then just like display it on the front end. Okay, so I install Axios. So if I go into my package.json of the front end, look, package.json, I have in here on my dependencies Axios. So that's all good. Okay, let's go to our main file. I'm going to delete everything that is inside of my app function. Delete everything. We don't need this logo stuff in here on the top. Now, what I'm going to need to do in here is I'm going to create a state. I'm going to do const and I'm going to do username. This is going to be the name of my state because I want to grab a username and store it in here on my state. And I'm going to do set username. So this is my state where I'm going to save the values of my name. This is going to be a function that I run whenever I want to update this state. And then this is going to be equals to use state. Okay, and so this use state is a React hook that will allow us to run this state basically. And we need to import it. So let's do import React, and we need to import use state from React. Okay, so now that we got this, the next thing that I want to do in here is run a use effect. So a use effect is another hook from React that is going to be a function that you can run, for example, when a page just loads. So inside of this use effect, let's put a function that is going to run, and I'm going to put in here a comma with an empty array. This empty array means that this use effect is just going to run once when the page is completely loaded. So let's import it in here on the top. We need to do that as well. Use effect. And what I want to do in here is I want to run a function called getNames. I want to call this function. Obviously, this function does not exist, so we need to create it. Let's do that. I'm going to do a const, and I'm going to put in here getNames equals to this. And what this function is going to do is I'm going to do a const response. So this is just like a regular variable that I'm creating. And I'm calling it response because I'm going to make a query to my backend, to that API that we just created. And I'm going to store it into this variable response because it's basically going to be the response that the backend does to us whenever we call it. And what we're going to do in here is axios.get. So we're going to make a GET request to our backend. And obviously, we need to import Axios. We installed it before, so it should be working. Import Axios from Axios. And where do we want to make a query to our backend? We want to make a query to http://localhost. I could write down like the full thing in here, like local host and then 5000 and then / names. I think that's the one that we chose. But instead of having to write all this stuff, oh, I think I even forgot some stuff in here. Instead of having to write all this stuff all the time, we can basically go inside of our package.json, inside of the front end, okay? Let's go to the last thing in here. Let's put a comma. And now this is where I want to set up a proxy. So I'm going to put in here proxy, and I'm going to put in here this, which is going to be HTTP. This is need to be a double quotes, HTTP : / localhost 5000. Okay, so basically it means that whenever I make a call now to my backend, I don't need to specify all this stuff all the time. I can basically just go in here and just do this / names. That's it. Okay, so when we make this const response axios.getNames, we make a call to the backend and we should receive it. Now, when we make this kind of calls, basically this is like an asynchronous call, we need to make sure that we handle these promises. So we're going to convert our function into an async await. This is just because sometimes, when you make calls to the servers, there could be some delays and you will not get the value straight away. So make sure that you handle this asynchronously. What else am I missing? Okay, so we got all of these. Once we get this response from the backend, using Axios, whenever you got the response, you always have whatever the data, the value that comes in there, always comes inside of an object with data. I'm going to show you this in the browser in a second. Console.log of our response. Okay, and that should be it. And for now, I'm just going to put in here a h1 my front end. Okay, this should be good. We just want to see this response on the browser. Let's do in here I'm inside of the front end already. So I'm just going to do a npm start. So make sure that you are running this command npm start inside of your front end folder. So this is just going to open now in the browser. I should be able to see this in here that says my front end. And look, we got in here my front end. Let's inspect the page. Let's open the console. We got a couple of errors in here. Uncaught promise. Let's see, something is wrong. Obviously the problem is because we are making a call to the backend, but we never initialized the backend, all right? So let's open another terminal. I'm going to click this plus in here. And what I'm going to do is make sure that I'm on my, let me do ls, and I'm on my root folder of the project. So as you can see, we got the front end, we got the package.json and so on. I need to do npm start, and this will start our server. So it didn't start because we need to go inside of the package.json of the server, and I want to go in here. I want to create a script called start, and I'm going to put in here nodemon and then app.js. Okay, now we have the script. Oh, this is not nodemon, this is node. I usually use nodemon because it's just a package that will allow you to just like restart the server if you need to. Okay, now we have the server running on the port 5000. We have the front end in here. Let's just refresh. And there it is. Look, we got our response from the backend. And inside of the response, we got config, we got data. This is what we want, data. And the value is Telmo. Okay, let's go to our front end. We got inside of our response, we got some data with my name. So what I want to do is store this in here on the state. So let's do set username with a value that's coming from the response.data. Okay. And I'm going to call this one my portfolio or my website. My website. And down here, I'm going to have an h3 that says my name is, and now I'm going to put between curly braces, just my name. So I'm going to put user name like this. We miss some kind of fragment in here because we need a parent that runs this around. Okay, so we should be all good. Let's go in here. Let me increase the size. I got my website. My name is Telmo. So what we have right now in here is all good. Our project with React and Node.js working together and displaying something in here. Now, what we want, now that we have our project, is we want to push this onto GitHub, and from GitHub, we're going to push it into our server. Let's do that. First of all, let's go into GitHub. Let's create a new repository. That's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to call this one React Node, and then I'm going to put CI/CD. Okay, React Node CI/CD. You can create any name that you want. Okay, let's create this. Now I'm going to create this repository. So git remote add origin. I'm going to add this origin into my local project. Let me just stop the server with Control-C. Let me go into my main folder. Make sure that you are on your root of your project, guys. Do a pwd to see wherever you are. Do a ls to see if this is the root of your project. Okay. I'm going to add this command, git remote add origin. Okay. And now I'm going to do git add dot, so we can add all these files that we have in here into our staging area. Oops, let's stop. I'm going to press Control-C. Press Control-C, guys, because there was an error, a mistake that I forgot, and is good. We want to create a file which is called the git.git ignore. And what we want to ignore that we don't want to copy onto our GitHub repository in here is going to be the node modules. So let's put in here node modules. We want to ignore this. That's why we create this folder. So this way we can copy every file, everything onto our GitHub, but not the node modules, because we can just like recreate them. We can just install them. Okay, let's do again git add dot, so we can add this new file. And now I'm going to create my first commit, which is going to be git commit -m create React and Node.js app. Okay, this is our first commit, and I'm going to do a git push origin master. Okay, I'm going to push this onto my GitHub repository. Let's see if we got all of these working. React Node CI/CD. And there it is. Look, our package.json, our app.js, our front end. We got everything in here. And now the next step is going to be, imagine that this was our big project. We want to push this onto our DigitalOcean server, and we want to show this online for anyone. Okay, let's do that. So I'm going to go inside of here onto my DigitalOcean account. So basically, guys, if you never use DigitalOcean, is super easy. I'm going to try to explain as we go. If you never create one, I have an affiliate link in here on the description. So if you use it, it's going to give me a little bit of commission, but it's going to give you $100 for 2 months. So basically you can use whatever you want in here up to $100, so you don't spend a single dollar. Even if you have to spend, guys, it's going to be just a little bit of money, not too much. But if you want to get this kind of $100 credit, just use my link that I have in here. Okay, so once you are in there, there's like a thing in here on the top that says create. So we want to create our server, and on DigitalOcean we call it droplets. So let's click in here where it says droplets. Okay, and we're going to install a Linux server with the Ubuntu. Okay, so it's one of the most popular distributions from Linux, Ubuntu. Super easy to use, and I'm going to try to explain as we go. So I'm going to choose this one. For the plans, look, there's like loads of different plans. I'm going to use probably one like this, $10. So how it works with these values, guys, like $5, $10, and whatever is like, you don't pay this value straight away when you sign up. This value in here is what you're going to pay after a full month. So let's say, for example, you only pay $10 after a full month. So if you only use it for 1 day, you're gonna pay like 50 cents or not even that. You just need to make the calculation. So I'm gonna put this $10 because I think that's 2 gigabytes is more than enough. You can even use this one, but I think it's just to make sure that we have enough power. I'm gonna use this one. You can use regular Intel with SSD or whatever. That's it. The next thing is we don't need any block storage. The data center, I'm going to use London because that's closer to me. We can select these IPv6. We can use this user data if we want, and this monitoring. This is just like some extra things that you can see there on the droplet after. Now, whenever you create this, you can use SSH keys to log in to your server, which is more secure, or you can use a password. A password is very easy, but I'm going to show you using the SSH keys, which is super easy as well. So what you want to do is you want to click in here where it says new SSH key, and we're going to learn how we can create one, okay? We're going to paste in here the contents. I already have one, so I'm going to use that one, but I'm going to show you how you can do that. Let's create one of these SSH keys so we can log into our server. So for that, let me just open in here these. What you want to do, if you are on Windows, guys, that's what I was telling you before about the PuTTY and this kind of Git bash and so on. If you are on Mac OS or Linux, you can just use your normal terminal. In here to create the SSH keys, what I'm going to do is, I'm on the root of my terminal. I'm going to go inside of cd tilde. So if you go to cd tilde, it's going to be like the root of your computer, wherever you are. I'm going to do a cd and then .ssh. Okay. So this .ssh is going to be a folder that is usually on Windows where you store your SSH keys. If you are on Mac OS or whatever, guys, you can install these wherever you want, on your documents, on your images, wherever you want really, on your desktop. But on Windows, I know that there is by default this folder that we can use, so that's where I'm going to store it. Now, to create these SSH keys, what I'm going to do in here is I'm going to do this. Hopefully, this is not going to... basically, I'm going to just type it in here. And what this does is we're going to do SSH key -t, this thing, and then you're going to put your email. This is to make sure that we put something. I'm going to put in here Gmail, and I'm going to say Telmo. Okay, it doesn't matter. So I'm going to put enter. Okay, and now it's going to tell you generate a new public and private key. Enter a file in which you want. So you want the name of your file now in here. The name of my file is going to be React Node, and it's going to be CI CD. It doesn't matter. Okay. Any passphrase that you want. I'm not going to put any passphrase. You don't need really. Enter again, and there it is. Okay. Now that you got this, if you do ls, you should be able to have now a public key, which is going to be this one. And then you're going to have another one, which is going to be this one, which is going to be your private key. Now, how does this work? We're going to copy the contents of this public key, and we're going to put it inside of our new SSH key. Whenever you open this, we're going to paste the contents of this file in here. And you can give it whatever name you want, like DigitalOcean key or whatever. And then this one in here is the one that you want to keep private, not show to anyone. So this one in here, to see the contents of it, what you need to do is, if I'm not wrong, you just do cat and then space, and then you're going to do react-node and then .pub. Okay, so when you do cat react-node cicd.pub, because this is the public key, you will see in here on your terminal all the contents of it. Let me just open in here like, public key example, just so you guys know how does it look like. Yeah, it's going to be something like this. Look, SSH dash is going to be something like this. And you just need to copy this, okay? And you just need to go into your droplet on the new, paste it in there, and that's it. Add a name, and that's it. Okay, I don't need to do this. How many droplets, how many servers I want? Just one. And I'm going to put in here, this is going to be Ubuntu CI/CD. This is the name of your server. You can call it whatever you want. Any tags, this is my project. That's it. Okay, I'm going to create now. Okay, so now that we got this is just installing. So this is just installing. And once it's installed, we are going to connect our GitHub Actions with our server. That's the next step. All right, so now that our server is installed, you can see that is in here. We can just basically click in there and see this is the IP address that we need to connect to this server. Let's actually go and try to log into that server. So in order to log in using our SSH keys, what we're going to do is make sure that you are in this current folder where you created these kind of keys. So I'm going to do SSH -I for interactive, and I'm going to do the digital. Oh, this is the name of my key that I created. You guys put the name of your key that you created, all right? DigitalOcean -key. So this is the one that I created before. If I just use this one, I would put in here the React Node CI/CD, okay? Just put the name of your SSH key that you created. DigitalOcean key, and then the next thing that I need is going to be root. So root is going to be the name of your user. Whenever you create a server, there is a user created automatically with the name of root that is like the administrator and that you need to log in. So you're going to put root, the name of your user, at, and then the IP address of your server. So I'm going to copy the IP address of the server. I'm going to paste it in here. If you guys don't know how to paste, I'm not sure if you guys have been having these problems on Windows. I don't think you can use the Control-V. You need to use Shift-Insert. Okay? So as I said, guys, you do SSH. Let me put this in here. Maybe you guys can see better. SSH space -I. This is the name of your key. Make sure that you are in this current folder where this key is. Otherwise, you need to put in here the directory to that key, okay? And then the name of your user, which by default is root, and then this one, okay? Press enter. It's gonna ask you if you want to connect. You just press yes, press enter, okay? And there it is. Look, we are connected to our server. Okay, now that we are connected to our server, we are gonna do a couple of things. We need to install Node.js into our server in order to make it work. So to install Node.js, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to put in here install Node.js Ubuntu. So this is our Ubuntu server. So there's like loads of stuff in here that you guys can follow along and so on. Look, you need to run these commands. So you can follow along with these steps that are in here. I'm just going to paste it in here on my terminal. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to copy. I'm going to paste it in here and like this. I think it was like too fast. So basically, meanwhile it's installing. This is what you need to do. You need to do sudo apt update, sudo apt install Node.js, and after you can just do Nodejs-v to make sure that is installed. There's a couple of options in here. The one that I did, I'm not sure why sometimes this just gets like this. I'm going to do sudo apt install -y Node.js. I think that's it. If I do node-v, it should work, yeah. So what I did basically was this command in here. I'm not sure, sometimes when you paste it on the terminal, it just goes like directly. I copy this command, curl -http, and then, no, this is the option too. I follow this one. I pasted this one, sudo apt update to update everything that is in there, install Node.js, and then after you got this one. Okay, we got Node.js installed. The next thing that we want to do is install our server, which is going to be the Nginx, that will allow us, to have different domain names and whatever, to just list it on our server. So we're going to install Nginx as a server. So in order to do that, I'm going to do this. So I'm going to do this a bit more slowly this time to make sure that you guys can follow along. Sudo apt update, make sure that everything is updated in our server before we install anything else. And after, this should be just like a couple of seconds. There it is. Now I want to install, I'm going to do sudo apt install nginx. So sudo, just make sure that we can just install this as an administrator. Do you want to continue? Yes. Okay, so this should be installed right now. The next thing that we want to do is we want to do this. Sudo ufw allow nginx http. So this command is to make sure that our server has by default like a firewall. Make sure that our nginx server will allow us, to create different domains and different ports, so can communicate with the outside world really. So let's do sudo ufw allow nginx http. This is for our firewall. It says in here rules updated. Now the next thing that we want to do is just do I'm just copy this, I'm gonna paste it in here, a systemctl status of nginx, just to make sure that this is actually running. And as you guys can see, our nginx server is active and running. Okay, let's press Q to get out of this. We install this. Now here's the thing, guys, in order for us to use these GitHub Actions, there's like certain commands that they don't allow us to use as a root user. So we need to create a different user so we can actually install these GitHub Actions and so on. So let's do that. In order for us to create a different user, which is not this administrator root, we're going to do add, and then I'm going to put in here the name. So add user, by the way, everything together. And I'm going to put Telmo. This is going to be my user, add user Telmo. When you do this, it's creating now a new user and is asking you to put a password. Now, before you start typing anything, whenever you're going to start typing, you will not see anything on the terminal. There's nothing wrong with it. You just don't see the values coming in. Okay, so I'm going to do my password. Okay, I'm going to press enter and then I'm going to retype my password again. Okay, press enter, my full name, just gonna put Telmo Sampaio. You don't really need to put this stuff, it's just if you want, room number, work. Okay, press enter, is this information correct? Yes. Okay, so we created that new user. Now, if we want to change for that user, we're gonna do su-telmo. Okay, look, even in here on my terminal, I can see that now my current user is Telmo at Ubuntu CI/CD, which is our server that we created. Okay, so the next step that we have to do is we want to create a folder where we're going to have in here our project. So our folders, whenever you install Nginx, remember that, look, whenever you log into your server, by default, you are on the root of the project. So we want to do cd and then / in the beginning of everything, we want to go inside of a folder called var and then www. I even don't have to type it because if you start typing the first word and then press tab, it's going to go like automatically for you. Okay, so in here, if you do ls, I think that this is only going to be available for you if you guys installed previously your Nginx server. If you didn't install it, I don't think this comes by default. Inside of this, there is a folder already saying HTML. And basically, this means that your Nginx server is working. So if we go to our server in here, Ubuntu CI/CD, copy this IP address, let's paste it, and look, welcome to Nginx. We have a server that we can list things in here. Anyone in the internet could go to my IP address in here and see whatever I put in here. Okay, let's go back to in here our terminal. What I want to do in here is create a new folder, which is just going to be for our project. I'm going to do in here cd, no, sorry, I'm going to do mk. I need to do sudo. I need to do sudo because is to tell them, look, I want to actually create something like mkdir. I want to create something as an administrator. Sudo mkdir, and then I'm going to say my website. I'm going to put my password. And look, Telmo is not in the sudoers file. The incident will be reported. Here is the problem. When we created our user, we never gave this user any privileges, okay? So let's do su-root. So, oops, now here is the problem. Let me just do exit. I don't do su-root because it will ask us for a password and we never create one. Just press exit, okay? So when you press exit, right here on the terminal, you go back to your root. Now, I want to add my user Telmo to the administrators group so we can create folders and so on. So this is what I'm going to write. As a root, I'm going to put sudo usermod -ag to add to these kind of administrator groups, sudo Telmo. I'm going to press enter. And now my user Telmo should be able to create folders and so on. Okay, let's do again. su-telmo. Okay. Now that we go in here, let's do again the same thing. cd var and then ww. Let's do sudo mkdir to make a directory, and I'm going to call this my website. The first time that you use the sudo command to tell, look, I am an administrator in here, I want to create this folder, it will ask you for your password. So put the password that you created before, and there it is. If I do an ls, now I have in here my website. Okay, now that we got this, let's go inside of this. Let's do cd, my website. Could call it any name that you want. This is where we're going to put our GitHub Actions. So let's go inside of our GitHub Actions and actually learn how this happens. So let's go to our Git. In here, where you are inside of your project, React Node CI/CD, there is a thing in here on the top on the menu that says Actions. This is the list of the menu. And inside of these actions, look, there is some kind of workflows that they tell you, look, this is what you have to do, or this is what you have to write in order to send your code from your repository in here into your server. We could go in here, but I'm going to show you like step by step. So we could do, for example, set up this workflow and so on, but we don't need this now. I'm going to do it later. I'm going to go inside of here, settings, and I'm going to go in here where it says actions. Okay. And inside of actions, there is this part in here that it says runners. So what this runner is going to do is something like this. We're going to install this runner in our server on DigitalOcean, and this runner is going to be listening all the time whenever you push some code to your GitHub branch that you have. If there is any change in there that you push, it's going to automatically copy the code from there onto your DigitalOcean server. Okay, let's do add runner. So we're going to click this in here, and let's choose our operating system on the top. I'm going to click Linux because that's what we are using with the Ubuntu. Architecture is x64, that's fine. Now, here's the steps that they tell you that you have to do. The first step is create a folder wherever you're going to have your project. We already have that. The next step is download this runner. So in order for us to download this runner, we're going to do curl-o whatever. So just click on it. It's going to copy automatically. Let's go to our terminal. Make sure that you are inside of your folder, guys, so you're not doing this anywhere. Okay, I'm going to do ls. There is nothing inside of my folder. I'm going to press shift insert. And there it is. Oh, I think it didn't work because we need to put our sudo before, okay, to tell, look, we are an administrator. So I'm going to put sudo and then curl whatever. Okay, so we downloaded this. I'm gonna do a ls, and as you can see, this is our like zip file with the runner. We need to unzip this file and then we can actually install it. To extract the installer, like it says in here, you need to run this command, tar, whatever. Let's click in there, go to our server, do this. Oh, again, my mistake, I didn't put the sudo before. I need to put sudo and then this. Okay, so it should just extract. If we do a ls now, there it is. Look, this is our zipped file. We got now different things like bin, config, env, externals, run, whatever. Okay, the next part will be to configure this. So let's copy this command. And this was the command that if you would use it as a root user, would not work. That's why we are using this other user that we created before. Okay, you can't use the sudo command for this. Okay, I didn't copy that, looks like. Let me copy, let me paste it in here and enter. Okay, somehow it didn't work. It didn't work, why? Because we need to give permissions to this user Telmo to actually make this kind of installations in here. And for that, this is what we are going to do. We need to go in here and do this command. Sudo chmod -r 777 and then var www my website. So basically what this command is telling is like, look, I want to give full access to myself for this folder to do whatever I need to do, install, delete, whatever. Okay, so make sure that you got these. If you have in here a different folder name, put a different folder name, needs to match it. Okay, let's press enter. Now let's run this again, this config that we got in here. Let's go in here, press enter, this configuration. Should just take a couple of seconds. And it's going to ask us to enter the name of this runner. I'm just going to put, for example, React Node runner. Could be anything. I'm just going to call this one. Any labels, I'm just going to press enter. I don't want to put any. That's it. Okay. Enter the name of your work folder. This is going to be now where your code will be installed from the GitHub repository. Is going to come in here and by default is inside of this folder called _work. So I'm going to leave it as it is. I'm going to press enter. That's it. Okay. So basically we should be able now to come in here into our GitHub repository, click where it says runners and tell in here, look, we have a React Node runner that currently is offline, is not listening to anything. So we need to start this runner. We already configured everything, we already installed everything, but we need to, to make it start. So let's do a ls, okay? So as you guys can see, there is this file in here called svc.sh. This is the file that we want to use to install this now and to make it start. So let's do this. Let's do sudo, and then I'm going to do in here /, because it's in this current directory. I want to do svh.sh install. So this is going to be to install this. The next thing I want to do is the same thing, sudo.svc.sh. This time I want to start this service. There it is. And look, it's even telling you is active and running. Perfect. Let's go back in here to our GitHub repository where we saw these runners. This time is idle. Idle means that is like is running, but it's just waiting for something to happen. Okay, we got our configuration in our website running completely fine. Now, one thing that we need to do now is we need to make sure that we create or we configure our Nginx server. So let's do that. Let's go to our Nginx and just configure this. To configure our Nginx, we want to go to cd, and I'm going to put in here the slash to start from the beginning of our server. I want to go inside of a folder called etc, and then Nginx, and then sites available. Okay, so etc Nginx sites available. This is where you are going to configure, for example, your domain names, the ports where your project is running, and so on. Okay, let's go inside of there. If you do a ls to see what's in there, there is only a default. This default in here is going to be a file for your default, for your main IP address. Like when people, they go to your main page, that's it, that's what they see. You can configure, for example, different domain names. Okay, so this is going to be just for your main one. If you want to create more domain names and so on, you can create more files. Okay, let's go inside of this. I'm going to do sudo nano. Nano is just going to be a way for you to open this as a text editor, and then default. Okay, let's do that. So this is the configuration of our server to see whatever ports, whatever domain names we want to put in here. I'm going to comment these two lines by putting a hashtag in here because we don't need this. Let's just go down a bit more. Now we have this part in here that it says root var www html. This is not where our project is. If you guys remember, the root of our project is going to be inside of my website. Then where it's going to be is going to be inside of a folder called _work. I forgot to show you these guys, but I'm going to show you after. And when we push our code from GitHub Actions onto our server, automatically creates for us two folders with the name of your repository, which, if you guys remember, we had in here on the top, react-node-cicd. So I have to create two folders in here with that. I'm going to show you after in a second. React, Node, CI, CD. I'm going to do again the same thing. React, Node, CI, CD. Okay, and I think that's it. I think that's it really. We don't need anything else. That's it. Down here, if I keep scrolling down, this is going to be the files that we're going to pick up by default. Is going to be the index.html from React whenever you optimize it. This in here is going to be the server name. If you have any kind of domain name that you put on your server, you could put it in here. Let's say, for example, telmosampaio.com or whatever is going to pick it up. If not, you just want to put in here the default, which is going to be the IP address of your server. Okay, I'm going to put this one if you don't have like anything set up. Okay, this is going to be the fallback. Now, let's scroll down. This part in here, this is going to be like how your project will run on a certain port. So, what I'm going to put in here now, so I'm just going to press enter. Inside of this location, I'm going to put this code that I found. Okay, so let's go back in here. Let me just put insert. Okay, so the port, this is where my project is going to run. My project is going to run on the port 5000, and then you just need to put these lines of code. Okay, all of these. All right, I think that's it for our server. So I'm going to press Ctrl X or Command X. Save modifier buffer, yes. So you save this, and now we want to make sure that we can restart our Nginx. Whenever you make some changes to your server, just restart it. So to do that, we're going to do sudo service restart, and then I'm going to put in here Nginx. Nginx. Okay. I did something wrong. Oh, it's the other way around. So this is sudo service Nginx restart. Okay, this is how it should look like. Perfect. Okay, we got all of these. Now, what we have to do finally is like, We will need to do these kind of steps as well in our code in order to make all of these work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a thing in here, a line of code that will allow us to run this command of Nginx restart without having to put the sudo, because we will have to need to do this from our GitHub Actions. So I'm going to remove the sudo from this user. In order to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to run this command like this: sudo vsudo -f etc sudoers -t telmo. This is the name of my user. I'm going to press enter. And now this is a completely empty file. And what I want to put in here, and this took me a while to find these guys, so hopefully this is going to be useful for someone. I'm going to press this. Okay, let me just open this so you guys can copy everything. So I'm saying that my user Telmo, which will have access to all the different group users, I want to put a no password for all these different commands like nginx start, nginx stop, nginx restart. So I don't need to use any sort of sudo commands in order to run this. And this is going to be very useful whenever we are doing the CI/CD in a second. Okay, let's press Command X to save, press yes, and press enter again. Okay, that's it. We got this. Now, the last thing that we need to do in here, if I'm not wrong, is just like reboot our server to make sure that everything is fine. So I'm going to do a sudo reboot. Okay, so we lost the connection to our server. That's all good because we're just going to make a login in a second. Now, let's go back to our code in here. And we need to create, by the way, we need to create in here something called the GitHub workflows for our CI/CD. So let's create a new folder. Let's call it .github. Okay, .github, and I'm gonna go in here and create another folder inside called workflows. And now that I have these workflows in here, inside of the workflows, I'm gonna create a new file and I'm gonna call it my website.js. You can call it whatever you want really, .yml. Okay, my website.js.y. It's going to be a YML file. And in here, this is where you will actually put all the steps that you need in order to send these onto your server. Okay, first thing that we need to put in here is you need to specify what's going to be the name of your file. I'm going to call this one is going to be my website.js CI, continuous integration. Okay, let's save this. I think it needs to be the same if I'm not wrong. So let's call it like this, my website.js. Okay, I don't think this should be a problem. The next thing we want to do is we want to set up these two lines. So I'm going to copy this. I'm not sure why do I have this one in here. I'm just going to put this Node.js. I'm not sure exactly why is it giving. I'm going to put in here the name for Node.js, and I'm going to rename this file for Node.js as well. Node.js, and it should be all right. Okay, so I got this one in here. Now, the next thing that I have is, I think we should change the name. It should be all right. Let's call this like this. It doesn't matter. So I'm going to say that on push, whenever we push any code to our branch of master. So if you want to do this for different branches, you can do that. If you want to put it in here for a pull request as well for the master, all the code that we're going to put in here is going to work. For the YAML files, we are using these kind of spaces. So make sure that the spaces, they are well aligned. Otherwise, your file will not work. Okay, the next thing that we want to do is going to be the jobs. Okay, let's put in here the jobs that we are going to build. And we want to put in here something like this. Okay, let's go on to the next line and let's put in here runs on, and we need to put in here self-hosted, okay, because we are using this on our server. We need to make sure that this runs on is one space inside of the build. Now, the next part that we need to put is going to be the steps. So I'm just going to copy this. And this part, this is what you were getting. Let me just put this back. This is what you were getting with these kind of things with the GitHub Actions. Whenever you go inside of the actions, if you remember, there's like all this stuff like by default that you can just copy and use these kind of actions that will push it automatically into your server. So some of these actions are like this one, the checkout v2, which uses like Node.js. Let me just see if I have everything in here. Fine. So these steps in here needs to be all on the same line like this, dash space run. So this is where we're going to put all our commands to use. So let me save this. Then the commands that we're going to use in here is going to be, first of all, when we push our code, we want to install our server, run the command npm install. Okay. Not this one. I just want to put npm install. The next command that we want to put in here is going to be a cd inside of our front end. The next thing we want to do is install whatever is inside of the front end, basically. The next thing is we want to do a npm run build. So this npm run build is the command that you run in React whenever you want to just build the React project. And I think that's it. And I think that's it for now. I think that this stuff needs to be on the same line as the runs on. That's why we're having this problem. Okay, let's push this inside and everything is fixed. So we got this npm install, cd, npm. Okay, perfect. Let's go and see if this is running. One thing before we actually do anything from here, guys, is that we need to go into our app.js and we need to do in there something. We need to import. So we're going to do a const and we're going to do path equals to require path. And just before this is like a module from Node.js that will allow us to grab different paths easier. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to copy what I have in here, paste it. What I'm doing in here is I'm going to say that I'm going to do a app.use express.static path.join to join this current directory, which is this __ their name, with front end and then build. When you are running a React application into production, what you want to do is, if you guys remember these commands that we were running in here for our server, you want to run this command npm run build. And what this npm run build does is creates a build folder. It's going to be like some static files. And then basically you're going to run all your React application from there. And you can pick up this with your server and just serve it in there, just using the port 5000. That's it. Okay, so now that we got all of this, let's save this. Let's do a git add all, and let's do a git commit -m, and I'm going to say configure GitHub Actions. Okay, let's do that. Let's do a git push origin master. If you guys remember, we are pushing this inside of our repository. Let's go inside of the actions in here. Look, configure GitHub Actions. There is already a dot in here. Let's click to go inside. There is this job that we created before build. Let's click inside. And look, it's running everything. npm run install is running all the commands that we set up from before and is almost done. Hopefully, if everything is done and we set up everything well, we should be okay now to run our application. This is just going to take like a couple of seconds and then it's going to be all right, just like to see the files in our server. Alright, so we finished to run all these different jobs, so it means that our code was copied automatically into our server. So if we go into our server now, let's do again SSH inside of our server. Let's change for our user Telmo. So I'm going to do SASU dash and then Telmo, okay, because I want to run as this user. Let's go inside of the var www and was my website. So inside of the my website, if you guys remember when we were doing the Nginx server, we need to go inside of this folder called _work. So let's do that, cd _work. By default, GitHub Actions creates this folder called React Node CI/CD with the same name of your GitHub repository. So let's go inside of it. 2 times, does this automatically. If anyone knows how to solve this, please let me know in the comments. I'm gonna do cd react node CI/CD again. And then if I do a ls, now I should be able to see in here my project. As you guys can see, look, my app.js, my front end, the node modules means that everything was installed correctly. But there's a problem, guys. We copy the files, we started everything. How do we start the project? How do we make this work now? Because at the moment we just copy the files and so on, but nothing is running still. So in order to make this running, what we're going to do is we're going to install a dependency in here called the PM2. So let's do that. I'm going to do this. Okay, I'm going to do sudo npm install PM2 at the latest, and we're going to install this globally. It's going to ask me for my password again. Okay, let's install this. Should wait just a couple of seconds, should be quite fast. Perfect. Okay, so now this is installed. The next thing that I want to do is I want to do a PM2 status. So this is the way that you can see if something is installed, some project is running. There's nothing in here, look. There's like this kind of table, nothing is showing up. Let's start in here our project. Okay, let's do ls again. If we go inside of our front end, let's do cd front end. And I'm going to do ls. I can see in here the build. So I know, okay, we build our React project, we have our backend, let's just start this. So in order to start this, let me go back. We are going to use this command in here from the PM2 service. And what we're going to do is we're going to do PM2 start. Okay, this is for the PM2 to start. And what we're going to do is npm and then -- name. So PM2 to start, and then we're going to do npm -- name. This is going to be the name that we want to give to this process that is going to run in here in our server. I'm just going to call it my website. You can give it any name that you want. Okay, and then the next step is going to be space -- another space, and we're going to do run, and this is going to be the start. This is the command that is in your package.json of your server, the start that we created before. If you guys remember, look, package.json, we just want to start our server, because our server, if you guys remember from our app.js, we said that, look, we're going to pick up everything that is built from the front end and we're going to serve it in here together with this, of course. Okay, so let's do this. PM2 start npm -- name. This is going to be the name of this process running in here, and we're going to do -- space run and then start. Okay, let's do that. And at the moment, are we in the right place? Let me just double check. I think we are. So it says in here that my website now is running, is online. This is the process ID, and this is the ID of the process. Is going to be 0. This is important, guys, because if you have many different processes, you want to check their ID, you want to check their name, and so on. So we're going to use the ID in order to stop this, start, and so on. Okay, it says in here that we need to also do a PM2 save to make sure that we save this into our processes. Okay, PM2 save. It says that this was successfully done. Okay, perfect. Now we need to add these steps into our workflow. So remember that whenever we push the code to our server, we are doing first of all npm install, we are doing after cd into the front end to go into the front end, install all the dependencies that we need, and then run the build. And after, what we want to do in here is we want to run these commands of cd ... So we go back to the main folder. And now what I want to do in here is pm2 stop the process 0. That's the one that we are working. We want to do pm2 start the process 0 again with these new files that we just installed. We're going to do pm2 save. And then finally, we're going to do sudo service nginx restart. Now, here is the problem, guys. If you remember, whenever you do sudo for the first time, it's going to ask you for the password. But we already solved this problem. If you guys remember, we did this part in here. Let me show you again. We did this, sudo vsudo, and so on. We went inside of this file and we said, look, this user Telmo doesn't need any password when running these kind of commands like nginx start, nginx stop, nginx restart. Okay, let me go back doing Control X. And we should be all good now, really. So let me save this. Let me just change something in here. I'm going to put in here Telmo Sampaio. This is going to be the name that I want to see in my app. Let's save this. So I'm going to save this now, push onto my GitHub repository, and this should automatically deploy this to my server. Let's do again. Let's do git add dot git commit -m adding workflow with pm2. Okay, and let's push this. Git push origin master. Okay, let's push this now. Let's go in here and see our actions inside of our project. Look, adding workflow with pm2. Let's see this build. So it's starting the build now. It's going to run all the different things that we have in there. Okay, so it should run everything in here. I'm just going to like pause this, and once this is done, we can just like continue. And there it is. Everything is built now. Everything has a check. So everything went well. So if we go to our server and I go in here into Ubuntu, this one, and I just open it in here anywhere. Let's see. My website, Telmo Sampaio. That's it. Our project is running now on our server. If you had like some sort of domain name, you could put it in here. I'm just going to do it probably in another tutorial. But basically that's it, guys. You have everything configured now. If you have some problems in here with these kind of steps and with these kind of actions that we are using from GitHub Actions, like I said, you can go inside of these GitHub Actions. There's like loads of these different templates where you can just grab whatever is in there. In here inside of the actions itself, look, there's going to be like different workflows that you can just create. Look, these templates. But that's it. You can just save your code now with Git, push it onto your master. That's what we said in here. If you have different branches, you put in here different branches. And that's it, guys. I know it was a long video, but I hope that you enjoyed it and it's going to be useful for you. So make sure that you hit the thumbs up if this helps you, and I will see you in the next video.